Hey, this is Pablo Gonzalez with Connect with Pablo. And if you really want to learn how to level up your life, you should be listening to the Time to Shine Today podcast with my boy, my good friend, Scott Ferguson.
Time to Shine Today podcast squad. It is Scott Ferguson, and welcome to 2021 and episode 174 with my world-class hype man, my really good friend Pablo Gonzalez from connectwithpablo.com. And I'm so stoked to bring you this interview that I had with my really good friend Pablo. He shares a fantastic story about his brother and also his journey to really beginning to want to be the person in the room that makes the room better. He is a world-class hype man. He's self-proclaimed that, but I just happen to agree with him. And he's just a fantastic interview. I'm going to shut up right now and just go right into the interview because I'm so stoked to bring you this fantastic discussion with my really good friend Pablo. So without further ado, here's my world-class hype man, Pablo Gonzalez. Let's level up. Time to Shine Today Varsity Squad. It is Scott Ferguson, and online content is networking on steroids. And I'm a major fail at it right now. I'm going to reframe that. For right now, I'm majorly failing at it, but we're going to bring in someone like Pablo Gonzalez, a networking expert content strategist, to come on and teach us about, leveling up your online content. Pablo is obsessed with human connection. He has used his expertise to manage a 120-person, $15 million construction business at the age of 25. If you're looking at this handsome dude, he can't be much older than 25 now. But he builds various young professional groups for charities and has been named a Latino Leader of the Future by Latino Leaders Magazine, which is a huge accomplishment, and a top 20 under 40 for Brickell Magazine. He's the founder and chief executive connector at Connect With Pablo, a content marketing and community creation agency, proving that community creation is the future of business development. He's the host of the Chief Executive Connector podcast, which I'm going to put that in the show notes. So after you listen to this show, go check out his show. And also the Not Your Average Investor show. And he's an award-winning speaker. This guy brings it. And I'm so stoked to have Pablo on. Pablo, thank you so much for coming on. Introduce yourself to the Time to Shine Today Varsity Squad. But what emoji do you use the most while you're texting?
Oh man, either the shaka, right? Like the little surfer rat sign, or like the tilted over crying so hard that I'm laughing.
Yeah, I was just gonna say the laughing one. Is it upright or tilted? That's sweet. Tilted, so of course you listen to some shows. What's your favorite color and why?
Ah man, I'm glad I listened for this, right? Scott, you ever driven down on the Keys?
Oh yeah, yes sir.
That shade of blue, right? Like I know there's like 100 shade of blues you see when you're driving down there, but I don't know how to describe that. Like that light shade of blue in the ocean when the sun's like kind of like hitting it, and it's right above like a white sandbar, and it's just like really pure, just I don't know how to describe it, man. But it's
beautiful. That yeah, I'm in Juno Beach, and it's that we get a lot of that blue. But I understand what you're saying. Going to, driving down through the Keys, that is a beautiful blue. It's so chill, but you also know it can be powerful if it really wants to, right?
Yeah, dude, I love the Juno Beach water, man. I've surfed at the Juno Pier a bunch. That Juno Pier Cafe, I love that hot sauce there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So let's get to the origins of you, Pablo. Let's get to the start and kind of bring us up into Connect with Pablo.
Yeah, let's go, man. I'm gonna try to keep this concise, my friend.
Love it.
Because this is usually like a 25-minute answer, but I'm challenging myself today. Listen, man, I've always been obsessed with human connection. I think it comes from, number one, being the most American person in my family, right? Like I was born in Venezuela. We moved to the US when I was a young kid, and everybody else in my family that I'm related to is just more Hispanic than me, right? I'm the most American person, even though I'm very Hispanic as well. And my first formative memory being walking into this preschool and knowing that I was the only kid that didn't know how to speak English, right? So that kind of marked me. And in a year, I learned English and we moved to Spain. And then I enrolled in this British school thinking that I knew English and thinking that I knew Spanish, but I didn't understand the British dialect and I didn't understand the Spanish dialect.
Right.
And it just never, from there on out, I've just been obsessed with how to belong, how to make sure that people around me feel like they belong. And that's just really my origin story, man. Professionally, I had this 15-year career in the construction industry where I went from a Fortune 500 company as an executive in training, taking over an operation at 25, becoming a green building expert out in my time in California out there, coming back to Miami, starting a green building company, getting acquired by my biggest client, becoming director of sustainability for a hospital builder. At this point, I came up with this. I got really involved in the community, right? I started those young professional groups.
Sure.
That taught me something about how to bring people together and how to lead with value to accomplish a mission, which was to get these young professionals to volunteer at these organizations. I started applying that for business development by leveraging stages. And I don't want to get, I think we're going to dive deeper into this, but and then I just didn't shut up about this theory for a while. That allowed me to become the VP of business development for a startup software for Amazon sellers up in Jacksonville. I partnered up with this guy, spent a year there, proved my thesis of community creation. Now outside of just the geographical confines of a community, I proved it online. And then after that year, I found what I was looking for. I had proved my thesis. I took a little bit of time off. I took this like 90-day purposeful pause to distill all these lessons and figure out where I want to be in 10 years, reverse engineer. That's where I come up with the language of community creation as the future of business development. And since then, brother, I have just been iterating and building this marketing machine that I believe is really where everybody needs to end up being, right? Like designing and executing these content creation plans that allow business owners to create this gravitational ball of energy that draws their potential clients closer to them. It builds relationships with their already existing clients, nurtures everybody in their ecosystem, while creating this community around their business and serving people at a mass scale without being salesy, without being anything like that. Just frictionless nurture, and only making them. It only takes the business owner like 2 to 3 hours a week because I take care of the strategy and everything else, man. And it's all about repurposing content, being out there 24/7.
I love that you said that you actually take a lot off the plate, because that's something that I, am blessed to not have time to do, in a sense, because I'm serving others, on a consistent basis. That's fantastic. You do that. So what do you think makes good online content?
Everything that makes for how you connect with people makes good online content, right? And I think the issue, what people see out there, is that they are being told what online content is by marketers and by people that have come up as, trying to do sales, trying to do marketing, and like reverse engineering all these old ways of, you used to only get one at bat, man. Like you used to get like one press release to maybe get in the newspaper, maybe get a spot on TV.
Yeah.
So you overthink a lot of these things, man. Whereas if you can create an ongoing relationship now that is driven by the same thing that builds relationships, right? Which to me, the two key drivers of building a relationship real quick is adding a little value to someone's life or sharing a vulnerability with someone, right? Like those two things bond people real quick. So if you can take this systematic approach of allowing yourself to be vulnerable enough to ask people how they can help you with that, and then putting that out there at scale, that makes great online content. And then there's the tactics of it, right? Like every social media medium has a preferred format that's going to help you get the attention of the people. People are scrolling the length of the Eiffel Tower every day on social media. So you got to create, so you got to create a thumb-stopping experience, right? And the way that you get someone to stop on your content for more than 3 seconds varies from context to context, but it's all about, how you can hook someone in order for them to hear your story, and then the rest is, what you got to offer and how everything goes, right?
I love it. So if I'm at a networking event, and we're allowed to do that here a little bit in South Florida area, as we make it through our COVID time and quarantine and whatnot, but like, is there any good, like, what are people saying to me that would make them a great introduction for as a prospect, possible client, or referral for Pablo?
They're telling you that they know that they need to be online more, right? Like they now in COVID, they have been building their business, going to networking events and shaking hands. And now that is limited, they realize that they need to have a much better online presence, but they hate spending 20 hours a week looking at their phone thinking, what am I going to say? Do I look like a douche? Or, or being the person in the office that when their employee does something great, showing up and being like, do that again so I can videotape it. Right. Like that. Right. People hate that. Right. Nobody, I don't like doing that. Like I love being on camera, but I still feel stupid when I'm talking to my phone in public. Right. So I would say somebody that is trying to figure out how to create a networking machine for themselves, like they normally have had through a chamber of commerce or another kind of organization that they're used to. If they want to create that for themselves online and they don't want to, or they want to be the Gary Vee of their industry, but they don't know what to say when they turn on their phone and it's taking them way too much time, I can take that all off your plate. And that's the first big win, is I give people their time back when they're trying to accomplish that.
Love that.
The rest just becomes this like self-feeding ball of sales machine.
Love it. And so as you're bringing in people into your program, we'll call it a program or whatnot, your system, is there any good question that you wish they would ask you but never do about online content marketing and what they should be doing?
I think people are pretty good about asking the question of online content. I think the question they need to ask themselves is, who is my clientele and what do they need? How can I help them? Right. So within that answer, your product is one of those equations, right? Like what you have to offer them should fall into that. Therefore, it should make up a bucket of what your online content should be. What people fail to ask is, what else does my client need? What else does my dream customer need? And who do I have at an arm's reach that I can introduce them to, just like in real life, right? Who do I have at arm's reach that I can introduce them to that will help them? And if you can take inventory of the people you're trying to serve and what they need, and the people that you have around you, including the people you're serving, and the value that each person has, and what that value can be valuable to your clientele, you put that up on a stage and you serve from one to many. Right. It's the same thing that Chambers of Commerce is doing, whatever. But now there's stages everywhere, right? Like your YouTube channel, your podcast, your Instagram feed, your Facebook, your LinkedIn account. They're all stages. Your email, they're all stages where you can put somebody's value that other people are seeking on it and communicate it one to many. And when you take the approach of being the stage as opposed to being the star of the stage, now you're seeing this like exponential growth. That huge. Starts to happen for everybody.
Wow. Yeah. Because you're being the stage, the content that they want to see will come to the surface, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. I love it. I love that. So you talked about vulnerability. Share some of yours.
I'm glad you asked this, man, because coming into this podcast, Scott, I got my friend Cameron's back here in the background hanging out because I was picking his brain about this. Everything that I'm doing right now, I didn't realize it at the time, but it comes from my brother's passing 6 years ago.
Sorry. Yeah.
And no, it's cool, man. I appreciate it. And I struggle with, so here's the circumstance, right? My brother is 8.5 years older than me. He had always been my North Star. And for better or for worse, I would always kind of peg myself against that, right? Like, I'm like, well, I'm doing better than him at 25 or whatever.
Right.
Which is stupid, but it is what it is.
This is what it is, yeah.
But also I've learned a ton from him, right? Like I knew like what to do and what not to do. I had that advantage as a younger brother. And when my brother passed away, I also didn't give him credit for a lot of things. And when my brother passed away, 1,200 people showed up to his funeral.
Wow.
Right. And at that moment was when it really dawned on me the benefit of community, right? Like the idea that the most powerful thing is this like support of the village, of each other, and how you can all help each other out, right?
Oh yeah.
So that dawned on me immediately. And right after that, what started really hitting me, and I got goosebumps. This is probably the first time I'm not actually choked up when I'm telling this story, but I had person after person reach out to me to tell me that, my brother was this guy that every time he was in a room, it was better, right? Like he was this guy that brought people together. And as someone who has always valued that more than anything and known that that is what people see in me and what I value the most and how I branded myself my whole life, I never gave him credit for that, Scott. Right? So my mind went to what else am I missing in other people? How much further can I go into this whole idea of, if I am here to serve, and my best way to serve is by recognizing people's values and putting them in front of people that need that value, and I missed it in my older brother, who have I not forgiven? Who have I not given credit for something that they did for me in my life? Who have I underestimated? If I'm able to underestimate this dude,
Sure.
that was the best man at my wedding, right?
Right.
And the vulnerability, Scott, comes in the idea that I want to share that story more, but I feel that it cheapens. I don't know. I feel this like guilt of like talking about it, because I don't want to be like, I don't want to be this guy that comes on stage like, hey, my brother died. Look at me, bro.
Right.
That, I struggle with that big time, man.
No, and I appreciate the transparency. I did the same thing. My little brother died. I was 8 years older, and it's like,
Oh, wow.
I get what the brotherly love, kind of thing, because I was him to how your older brother was.
No,
to you.
exactly.
You know what I'm saying? He would always tell me, be like, hey, look where I'm at when I'm like, little shit. You know what I'm saying? Kind of thing. And I love it. And I'm glad you're transparent. I'm happy to hear the vulnerability out of that. And thank you for sharing, brother. So,
and Scott, if I can explain something there, right? Yeah. Like right now, you sharing that with me, dude. Mm-hmm. I like you 10 times more, right? Like I'm like, wow. Now I shows it. I see my brother in you, I see these things. And to me, that is that thesis of like, if you have shared if we share the same pain point, right? Like veterans bond because they've been through the same struggles, we do, right? Like, so it just proves that whole idea of it's this very, powerful connection tool, man. So like, why not lean into it?
Love it. Lean into it. I love that. Love it. So, how do you want your dash remembered then? Since we're kind of going down this road, that little line between your incarnation date and your expiration date, how do you want Pablo's dash remembered?
Man, exactly how I remember my brother, man. And I swear to God, I never thought I would say that before, but it's really in the last 3 to 4 months, I've really just been like, man, I want to be seen as he was seen, right. Like I want to be seen how everybody else saw him except for me.
Right. I love that.
And I want people to, reach out to the people that love me and say, man, that guy brightened up every room. That guy brought everybody together. Love that.
Love it. And that's what you're doing too, man. You're living that legacy with that. And, so what's one thing for sure?
Man, one thing I know for sure is that the human being is the quintessential social animal. We didn't get to the top of the food chain because we are the strongest, because we're the fastest, because we got the sharpest teeth. We got to the top of the food chain because at some point, one caveman looked at another caveman and said, let's work together, take down this woolly mammoth, and we can eat for a month and then worry about other shit.
Love it.
I was just listening to a past episode of your podcast with Frank, right? Like Frank Agan, who
love him.
Networking Yoda, right? Like that guy's a beast.
Yeah, love him.
My favorite networking podcast, by the way, Networking RX. Shout out to Frank.
Fantastic.
And he tells that story of like the birth of civilization being the moment that they, anthropologists crediting the moment that they found a healed femur as the birth of civilization, because in the animal kingdom, no animal survives that because you're just left to die. So like somebody has to take care of you to get through that, man. I wholly buy into that, man.
Yeah. And like humankind, human beings, human doings. Love it. Love that. So since you've listened to the show, I really got to ask you here, let's get in that DeLorean with Marty McFly. Let's go back to the 22-year-old Pablo. What kind of knowledge nuggets are you dropping on him to help him level up, shorten his learning curve? And also, would he listen?
I think the 22-year-old Pablo would listen to what I'm about to say right now.
Okay.
And it's the idea that the people that love you the most have a different set of priorities for you. They want to keep you safe. They're not trying to incentivize your growth, which inherently means pain and going through some really uncomfortable stuff, right? Like I look at everything I'm doing now, man. It's funny I love being on the varsity squad, first of all, right? Because I never made a high school varsity team, right? And I'm this like frustrated athlete that like I love to compete, man, but I just don't have any short twitch muscle fiber in my body. But what I was really good at, like I had this big propensity for the performing arts, and it was completely squashed by my parents, right? Like I love my parents are amazing, dude. Like my mom is the super connector of all super
Sure.
connectors that I model myself after, right? But when I showed up in ninth grade and they gave me the lead role in the school play over like a senior, she immediately was like, "You're out of drama. You need to go to study hall. Like that's not what guys do. Like you need to play tennis and study, and you're going to be an executive, right?" And like every time that I would lean into this, another moment that explains this, I quote Ace Ventura at least once a day.
I love it. I love it.
And when that dawned on me, I told my mom, like her response was like, I wish you could quote the Shakespeare, like, I'm like, Mom, so leaning into my gifts, right? Like I was always groomed to be this executive, but that's never really what I wanted. So like I lived my 15 years in construction thinking that I was going to be this like big company executive guy. And really what I am is just a world-class hype man,
Love it.
And I needed to build something around that skill set, something around those things. And there was multiple times in my life from 22, when I took that job in the construction company, through a time when I almost quit to go sell solar panels, to another, there's multiple moments where I was like, man, this doesn't feel right. And I want to go do something else. And I got talked down from it by my dad, who is a world-class businessman in his own right. And he was just like, no, this is the path. This is like the safer path. When in reality, I think he was just protecting me, right? Which is cool.
They do
right?
that.
That's what a dad does. But like until I started listening to Gary Vee in like November 2017, that idea of the people closest to you not being aligned with your incentives and that being okay was something I never conceptualized.
It's a beautiful thing, isn't it? Once you see that, I mean, my family's the same way. They're raised sharecroppers in Alabama and stuff like that. And I'm the only entrepreneur in our family, period. And at first it was like, oh, what do you want to do that for? And money is evil. And then it was, they started seeing the success. They still were like that crab in a bucket, where they're like, you're trying to get out and they're kind of pulling you back in for safety. But, it's when I was started feeling some of that success, I was kind of like, well, look what I did. Now it's about humble and being like, thank you for actually doing that for me, because it gave me a different perspective. I love it. So Pablo, what's 3 things you can't live without?
3 things I can't live without, man. I can't live without hanging out with people.
Community. I was going to say, you better say community. Yeah.
Man, I can't live without that like interaction with somebody, right? Like I can't live without some connection to outdoor spaces, right? Be it the ocean or mountains or something like that. For me in my life, it's been the ocean. And man, I can't live without my family, bro. Like I really
love it.
I really love my family, man. Like I feel real blessed.
I can feel it. It's coming through your voice. It's coming through your passion and emotion. I love that, man. Thank you for sharing that. So as we wind things down just a little bit here, Pablo, we have our leveling up lightning round. 15, 20 minutes. We could talk in each one of these topics or questions, but you got 5 seconds. No explanation. I mean, none. Okay. We're getting this ding thing. My producer's like, we're going to set up because people just want to talk about it. We can cover things that we feel after it, but 5 seconds. You ready to rock?
Let's go.
All right. Let's level up. What is the best leveling up advice Pablo's ever received?
You never start a conversation with anybody. You simply can join the conversation going on in someone's head.
Love it. Love it. Share one of your personal habits that contributes to your success.
I am always speaking out about what I'm passionate about, man. It's this giant bat signal that attracts stuff to me.
Not connectwithpablo.com, not timetoshinetoday.com, my shameless plug. What's a website you like to go to level up?
Man, the Gary Vee, anything Gary Vee's doing, man.
Love it. Love it. Not the book you're reading now, not the flavor of the month, but if I'm on my doldrums, I'm like, man, and you're like, Fergie, read this book. What is it?
The Road Less Traveled by M. Scott Peck.
Love it. Yes. So if you could be physically one age for the rest of your life and still collect wisdom, what would it be physically?
This. Bro, I turned 40 in a month, man. I've never been in better shape. I've never been happier. I'm at the peak of my power.
I'll allow you to say that because people that are watching, you got this handsome dude down there, it's in shape, and he brings it. Other people that are old, I'm like, dude, you want to be 32. Shut up. You know what I'm saying? So what is your favorite charity and or organization like to give your time and or money to?
Man, I believe so much in this. Right now, it is Rethreaded and Best Buddies are the two ones that I'm most involved in. The Rethreaded is a local one that rescues people from human trafficking.
Love it. Thank you for saying that. And last question, what's the best decade of music? 60s, 70s, 80s, or 90s?
I mean, isn't it what the answer is whenever you were a teenager, right? Like
right.
It's the 90s, right? Like I love hip hop.
You're 90s, yeah.
I love grunge rock. I love punk rock,
bands,
like no effects, like that age of punk rock, that age of metal, right? Like all that stuff, man.
Love it. I love it. So how can we find you, Pablo?
Connect with Pablo. That is me everywhere. ConnectWithPablo.com. That'll send you to all my social media channels. My podcast, the Chief Executive Connector podcast, is my baby, man. Like I'm starting to do some like weird stuff on there, like you were talking about. Like,
it's awesome.
These like pep tracks, but it's like this like living document of how I, this embodiment of the Ralph Waldo Emerson quote of, in my walks, every man I meet is in some way my superior, and in that I can learn from them. Right? It's like to learn from people and how to grow.
Learn from people and grow. Leave us with one last knowledge nugget that you want us to take with us, internalize, and take action on, Pablo.
Yeah, man. People don't connect with, follow, do business with, learn from people that they understand. They connect with, follow, do business with people that understand them, that they feel understand them.
Love it.
At the end of the day, man, that sharing your vulnerability piece, the adding value to someone's life, it's all about being the best listener you can be and looking at trying to figure out what people's priorities are, figure out where you are aligned with them, and then offering them the choice to align with you in the things that you're clearly aligned with. And to me, that's just like the system of creating relationships.
You're 100% go-giver. You're so transparent. And squad, Pablo's obsessed with human connection, how to belong, and how to make others feel like they belong. He's going to remind you to lead with value to accomplish projects, and how you connect with people makes good online content. Create an ongoing relationship and add value and share in vulnerabilities through. And Pablo can show you how to do that. Pablo made a point, which I thought was pretty awesome, that people scroll the length of the Eiffel Tower pretty much daily. And what Pablo's company will do is he will create thumb stopping content, which is fantastic. So if you want the introduction to Pablo, which I hope you do, please reach out to me. I'll make that personal introduction. He wants to create an online networking machine to help you level up your business in your life. You want to ask yourself who your clientele is and how you can help them. Instead of starting with me, ask who your clientele is and how you can help them. He wants you to serve from one to many. He wants you to be the stage instead of what you're talking from the stage. Be the stage, be that content for them. And his brother, fantastic story. He wants you to try to be like his brother and try to be the person that when you're in the room gets better. He reminded us that human beings are the quintessential social animal. He made a great point of there's actually bones that are dug up that are healed, broken bones. And the only way they could have been healed, it was someone helping that human being. And that's what Pablo is all about, is helping people. And the people that love you the most may have different priorities from you, but don't let that stop you. If your heart and your passion is pulling you someplace, there are support systems like Time to Shine Today and also Pablo that'll help you level up through that time. And then lean into your gifts. In Pablo's gifts is he is a world hype man. And we have him here. He levels up his health. He levels up his wealth. I love this guy to death, man. He's fantastic. And we're going to do some collaborations with Pablo. So thank you so much for coming on, brother.
Dude, that was so impressive, man. Thank you. That was amazing. Thanks.
Awesome. Have a great day. Hey, thanks so much for listening to this episode of Time to Shine Today podcast. Proudly brought to you by Sutter & Nugent Real Estate Excellence, who can be reached at 561-249-7266 and online at www.sutterandnugent.com. If you're a business owner or professional who would like to be interviewed on Time to Shine Today, please visit timetoshinetoday.com/guest. If you like this episode, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever you get your podcasts. There's a link in the show notes to our website. Also there, you will see our recommended resources. We hope that you will support our show by supporting them. If
If you like what you've been listening to, it'd be great if you could just give us a 5-star rating and tell your friends how to subscribe while you're at it. I'm your host, Scott Ferguson, and until next time, let's level up. It's our time to shine.